Hi, I'm Paul Grenier. This is Whiskey and Wood, bringing the people, the stories, and the success to you. This is a multi-billion-dollar industry, and these guys and gals are out to get a piece of it. Why Whiskey and Wood? Why not? Well, hello everybody. Welcome to another episode of Whiskey and Wood. We are here with Sims Acuff out of Georgia. Did I pronounce the last name right?
That's right.
Okay,
Acuff.
perfect. And yeah, really excited to talk to you. You are a big player. You're very involved with this urban wood movement, and actually, you coined the phrase "forest free," which, to tell
That's
you
right.
the truth, I think it kind of is more palatable and encompasses more of what we're doing here because when I first started, you hear urban lumber, and I'm from more of a rural setting, and I'm like, oh, that just must be wood from the city or the big city. And that's not the case at all. You could be in a country setting and have a tree that was planted on your front yard by your grandfather, and that is considered urban lumber. So,
Yeah. I coined forest free because I recognize that problem. So I coined forest free to cover basically any situation in which a tree is removed for a reason other than its lumber value.
yeah, exactly. And I just think it's a great term and good job with that. So tell me, I purposefully don't look into customers past because I want it to be a natural conversation and learn with the people who are listening. So I know that you were a tree service in the
That's
tree
right.
service, and that's kind of so lead me through how you got started in this.
Yeah. So I went to Georgia Tech and I was on the crew team there. And a buddy of mine on the crew team was basically putting himself through school, running a tree service as a college student. It was mostly just him and, whatever buddies he could find and hire. Um, He'd done it previously, like in high school. And So I started working with him and I did that all through college. And then when I got out of college, I started doing it on my own for friends and family. And that just kind of bloomed into a full-time thing. And I started a tree business and I did that for a little over 10 years.
Yeah.
The full range of, technical removal and pruning and all of that sort of stuff. So, but about partway through that, I really kind of wanted to get out of the tree business at some point. And we had all these logs, and I'd done some woodworking kind of growing up as just a little bit of hobby and things like that. So I was familiar with lumber and throwing away all these. We Atlanta has a lot of large white oaks, a lot of old growth white oaks that maybe you don't see in the forest so much anymore because people will just have them at their house for 100 years. So we have some pretty large diameter white oaks here, and I hated to see that get thrown away, especially when we would cut them down. Plus, we were paying then to dispose of the material typically. So
Yeah.
I bought a sawmill and I started cutting them up and just kind of looking for a market for it. Um, the challenge I found was that there didn't seem to be much of a market for green wood or even DIY lumber. The market seemed to be high-end flooring. So I had to go from basically take the product all the way from log to high-end flooring. And I did that through basically going to a lot of different other lumber facilities. And I would sort of outsource all those means of production after I cut the material. So that was a challenge. It was a challenge to control the quality and all that sort of stuff. So I saw the need to vertically integrate so that I could control the quality.
Yeah.
So that's what I did, and it took a number of years to kind of do that. But I grew that up as part of the tree business until I was ready to go full time into that, and sold the tree business and just went full time into urban lumber, and architectural millwork
Yeah.
products, things like that. So
And it's really cool to me. And what I was really excited to talk to you about is because a lot of guys, the live edge slab market, and that's what everybody's doing. But you saw the value in this wood in more of a conventional sense of creating a flooring product with it. And I think that's the biggest thing because you've seen firsthand how much wood is disposed of as a tree service person and
yeah,
what kind of an opportunity this is. And it doesn't have to be just live edge furniture anymore. There is so much need for molding and trim and flooring. Um, and there's a bigger piece of the puzzle that guys like you and other iDRY customers can be a part of. Um, but yeah,
yeah, and a
talk
big part of that is the drying.
the
Can you dry
drying
it
for
right?
sure.
Because you have to be much more technical about drying lumber than you do slabs.
Yep,
Just the final product
exactly.
is going to be a lot less forgiving once that thing's a, kitchen cabinets or a bookshelf or a grand piano, whatever somebody's going to
Yeah,
make out of it is just going to be a lot more precision. And so the wood movement is a lot more important than just a live edge table. If it expands or contracts, no one's a quarter inch, no one's going to notice.
yeah.
Um, but if your piano does that, you're going to have a lot of problems.
Yeah, super important. And I've talked to some other flooring manufacturers, and these days, and I'm sure you are producing some of it as well, where you have a pretty thick lamella, I think they call them, to a engineered floor bottom. And a challenge that they've had even with that is when the moisture content was different between the base and the top, you get uneven shrinkage, which causes some issues. So,
Yeah.
yeah, flooring is its different animal. But how how did you go from just a tree guy cutting? I know you kind of breezed through it, but it's pretty impressive your operation and your flooring now. So you must have had to learn a lot about that through trial and error or just the education you received. Um,
Certainly.
yeah,
Well, the internet helps this day and age. Um, but yeah, a lot of trial and error, a lot of research. I moved pretty slowly, so I didn't get ahead of myself,
yep.
and in trouble on anything until I, knew progressively what I was doing. Um,
So
so
I was just gonna say, what was like the first step? All right, so you've got the lumber and you started shipping that lumber to flooring manufacturers and they started putting it together, or what was your first step in creating? Did you buy like a molder planer? Um,
um, yes and no. So I bought a sawmill, a portable Timber King sawmill. So I would mill the boards and then I would air dry them. And then when they were air dried, I would take them to a kiln that was about 2 hours away. And eventually they would get around to drying my stuff. Um, and then and then I would bring them back, and then I would take them to a wood products distributor or a lumber distributor that was local to us, and they would surface and rip it for me. And then I would take it to a molding shop, and they would run T&G or whatever profile I needed on it.
okay, perfect. And did you started, were you using that lumber yourself, or did you have people that were ready to buy that flooring? When you went through that process, or how did that work?
Yeah, I would typically do it to order. So somebody would, uh, back then it was basically all root to fruit stuff. So I would remove someone's tree and then they would want it back as their flooring. So
Yep.
they would just be in for a long process to get their own material back.
Awesome. And these days, if you go to utree.com, that's the right website, right?
That's right.
You-
Yeah. EUTREE.
Yep, you will see a beautiful variety of different flooring and colors. And you actually won a an award for flooring of the year from the National Hardwood Flooring Association.
Yeah, we did. That was a fun project and a fun experience.
Yeah, it's beautiful stuff that you're seeing. And it really excites me because this is all forest-free wood. All his flooring that you're seeing is typically coming from, I'm guessing, a more local area and going into homes. And being showpieces themselves. And I mean, I
Certainly.
imagine they got to blow away your customers have to be just fall in love with them, and especially with the story of these were all reclaimed trees that you had seen be burned or turned into firewood or go into a chipper so many times are now these absolutely stunning floors. It's amazing.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, it's I saw you are on the board of directors for the Urban Wood Network, or is
Yes. So just recently on the board of Urban Wood Network. So I'm excited about that.
and I should know more about the Urban Wood Network considering what I do and what we do. But for people like me and I guess other people listening, tell me a little bit about the Urban Wood Network. Like, what is the mission? What are you guys working towards?
I think ultimately the mission is to build a brand around urban wood and a community of producers and buyers, and connect producers with buyers, um, and again kind of just market that out to the country, to the design community, architects, designers, builders, let people know that that's an option.
Yep.
We also need to, as potential buyers out there learn more about urban wood, we need to be able to describe to them what it is. The traditional lumber industry has all these different grades and everything. So we need to come up with our own, what's a grading system that works for us
Yeah.
and works for our customers. So understanding how does a small mill grade? We don't have, the problem with a small mill grading is you don't have, a giant factory floor where you can do all sorts of, you can do dozens of different sorts of lumber because it takes up a huge amount of space. We don't have warehouses as big as it takes just to have the sorting portion of a big mill. Because you need all these different species and all these different grades, and then you may be doing different lengths. So there's just exponential iterations of every size, type, cut, all of it.
Yeah.
So we don't have the space for that. So how do we group our wood, which is more of a mill run, what's coming off my mill right now? And maybe we can mill by species, maybe we can mill by length, but it gets challenging if you're going to try to divide species, length, grade, all of that sort of stuff, length, width. So what's going to work for smaller producers of lumber and what's going to work for buyers? What do they really need? What's really important to them? And, is there a middle ground where we can produce something and then they know, and expectations are set. So they know what to expect when they buy it.
Yeah.
You don't want to sell somebody something that, well, I'll say one of the problems that I would face, because we make wood and we stock wood. We do a lot of rift and quarter saw and white oak, so we're sort of set up to quarter saw. So that's our specialty as well, with these big white oaks here. But even within that, grades are mixed. There's a lot of mixed material in one of my bundles, perhaps. And so if somebody wants something specific in that bundle, I have to take the time to have the guys sort through it and understand what we have. Well, that may take an hour or two.
Yeah.
And if I'm going to try to sell this competitively with the big guys, I may not have an hour or two in it to see if we have what a customer wants and if we have enough of it to maybe make a sale or not. Um, so that's a big challenge. And then I don't want to sell somebody something. I don't want to just say yes to a customer, give them a bundle of wood, and then they open it up and they're not happy.
Yeah.
I'd rather not have a sale than have an unhappy sale.
Yeah.
So that's a big hill to climb.
Yeah.
I will say one of the things I'm doing, I think I'm working on equipment solutions to that. So I have another company I founded a couple of years ago called Woodflow. And what we're doing is our goal is to make automation attainable for smaller
Small.
mills.
Yeah.
Yep. So automation at your scale. And so one of the things I did is I invented a stacker a couple of years ago. So it's basically like the smallest, most compact lumber stacker there is. Usually these are giant factory floor systems for stacking, and are completely unaffordable. And, you know, even the equipment to get the wood to the stacker is millions of dollars. So this stacker is small and compact, and as part of the stacking process, we take the width and the width of the material and length. So we basically have the size. So we could tell you the board footage of every board and where it is in the pack. So I'm hoping to get to the point this year or next year where we develop we attach, what's the right word? We build sort of an inventory management software around the material that's loading on the stacker. So if you have one of these things, it's going to know, it'll take photographs, it'll know length, width, grade, whatever you program it for, of every board in your pack and where it is. And so then it would build a searchable database. So if you have a pack of lumber and you have a potential buyer for that, and it's been over the stacker, you could potentially just send photos, or you could send a data packet that would have photographs, lengths, widths, all the details of that material to the buyer, and say, hey, here's what I have. Take a look at it. Let me know if this works for you or not.
That's awesome. And really, this is the meat and potatoes of why I was really excited to talk to you, because uh, I talked to Jim and the owner of the company and a bunch of people, and it is a major challenge with this material that's so plentiful is conventional grading. And like you said, coming up with a system that works for this lumber, because it's still good lumber. And the challenge that most lumber that goes to a conventional mill is forest trees that have been grown to have specific grain structure and lengths and widths. And we are dealing with really unique lumber in the forest free situation, but also that uniqueness is what makes it beautiful. It's like boutique style lumber, right?
Right.
Uh, and once we figure out the grading thing, which there's a lot of smart people working on that right now, then this whole industry can kind of, like you said, be taken to the next level and be another option for people. Um, and it sounds like you, as well as the Urban Wood Network, is making some good strides towards that. So I guess my question would be, we have a bunch of smaller uh, customers out there. iDRY as a brand has so many guys producing high quality vacuum kiln dried lumber who have the ability to supply to this chain that you guys are working to create. What's the best way for them to do that? Should they join the Urban Wood Network? Is the Urban Wood Network, are you guys trying to centralize it so it's one facility, one sawing, one drying area, or is a bunch of these smaller people, can they
No, no, that would be going the same direction as the lumber industry's gone for the
right,
last few years. So
exactly.
the goal is to decentralize. At least
Yep.
my goal
Yeah.
would be to go back more towards decentralized lumber production,
Yep.
especially in the United States. That way, we're not getting in that same situation where, you know, very large mills control the supply, and when they shut down, the home
Like
market
COVID.
is really messed up. People have a
Yep.
hard time getting homes. The price skyrockets, so that puts it out of reach of, you know, middle America, and we really don't want that
Yep.
as a country. At
Right.
least the normal people wouldn't want that as in
Exactly.
this country. So I think a great way to do that. Well, I think the Urban Wood Network and Urban Wood is important, as we, you know, really as what are we as producers, as small lumber businesses kind of
Yep.
come together and figure out how do we decentralize and compete with the large mills. You know, a lot of the hardwood lumber people are, you know, even the big hardwood lumber operations are really generational mom and pops for the
Mhm.
most part. It's really the framing lumber industry that's like very corporate,
Yep.
Wall Street owned, a lot of it, and yeah, it's the prices are so cheap, it's hard to get into that
Compete
as
with.
an urban lumber mill. But I think that would be basically the holy grail.
Yeah.
Can we get to where we can get back to local mills supplying the home building industry with the materials that they need?
Eh,
And that's going to be speed of production. You know, everything basically boils down to, you know, as far as lumber industry prices, it all boils down to how many board feet can you produce per man hour and
mhm.
per investment dollar.
Yep.
So very large mills produce very fast. They also have very high overhead and a lot of employees, but they produce very, very, very fast.
Mhm.
Um, if you can get as a small mill to where, you know, 2 people or 3 people can produce the same amount of board footage per person or close to it, that's all you have to do to compete with that and supply your local Home Depot.
Yep.
Um, and so I think the best way to do that is with what we're doing with Woodflow, what I'm trying to do with Woodflow,
Yep.
and making automation attainable. And I think there's been a big gap in the machinery industry. You know, 20, 30 years ago, automation was very expensive, very high tech. You've got, you know, PhD engineers are doing this stuff, and it's very expensive to get into for companies. So the companies that are supplying automation and building the automation are targeting those very large buyers. They want to sell $1 million systems, multi-million-dollar systems, so they can pay all their engineers, and that's how it works. So they don't care about the small sale. They don't want to sell $20,000, $100,000 pieces of equipment. They want to sell $1 million pieces of equipment. Um, I
Um,
think the point is, if we can, automation has got so much cheaper over recent years. It's so much more attainable. But still, the equipment industry hasn't like refocused their sights on the potential for small businesses and small producers. So
yeah.
what I want to do is develop lines of equipment that will connect machines of small businesses, small lumber businesses like mine, connect your machines so that you can have an assembly line. You know, if you and stack it. If you can remove a stacker so that you can run a feed through lumber machine, you know, if you can remove the person stacking from your feed through lumber process, and you can do that with 1 man instead of 2, well, now you're producing at twice the man hour rate of material, and you can have that other guy go run another machine at the same time, and now you can get twice as much work done
Yeah.
for half the labor. And then if you've got a line and you can, you know, if boards are coming out of one machine, then the guy's got to pick them up and put them into another machine. Well, you have to have a person at every station between every machine. So that's a lot of people. If you can connect machines without having to have a person in the middle, so it can feed through one and then right into the other and then get stacked, now you can have, you know, 1 man or 2 men run a whole assembly line process or a manufacturing line process, and much more efficiently. So
That's awesome.
your board foot production per man hour rate skyrockets in your favor with that. And then maybe that will get us closer to where we can decentralize lumber production.
Yep, that is going to be the next step, and this gets me fired up, especially all the stuff you're doing, because the decentralization and getting all these micro, I don't want to call them micro wood operations up and running at that speed is going to be huge. And it all started, with a portable sawmill. Now guys have the ability to cut and make beautiful quarter sawn lumber. And really, what you just mentioned with uh, the automation equipment being really huge and really expensive, and that being the focus of those companies, it wasn't long ago that vacuum kiln drying was in that same situation.
Correct.
We would be focused on large multi-million dollar projects for these huge corporations, and maybe we do a project or two a year. And really, with the release of the iDRY brand, was us recognizing that there is so many people out there creating beautiful hardwood lumber that this is a problem for them. And how can we scale and simplify the vacuum lumber drying process to put a scalable piece of equipment in their hands so that they can dry the product, right? So that was the
That's
first
right.
step. You cut it, you dry it, and then now you are working on automating and making something scalable for a small operation. Um, that's the end goal, is to have awareness around this product and be able to have all these small independent companies feed this pipeline. Um, it's really exciting to me, and I think we're getting closer and closer every day. And yeah, it's sorry, I lost my train of thought there, but this is the stuff. This is why I was really excited to talk to you, because I know you've been working with the Urban Wood Network. And would there be value in guys who are producing lumber and drying it? How should they join the Urban Wood Network to create to help have a pipeline, or
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I think the more voices, the better. And also just the more people starting to connect to this, the bigger it's going to get. You
yeah,
know, my goal, I think, for Urban Wood would be to get to where we have some, I think the holy grail would be to where we get some large companies, some large buyers
mhm.
that want to commit to buying, you know, X amount of urban wood, and they understand the product and they understand the value, and they're willing to work with mills, and mills, you know, small mills understand how to work with them, and we can develop some different products, you know, a certain type of lumber at a certain type of length and a certain range of grades, whatever it is. And then we start to be able to, you know, sort of develop buyers and develop products that are producible by urban wood manufacturers that can go to them. Um,
I would love to be a part of that, Sims. If there's anything
yeah,
that I could do, if I could, I'm not sure if meetings with the Urban Wood Network, but that is ultimately my goal too. I picture a situation where, like you said, we have a product, big buyer says we need X amount of board feet, thousands of board feet of this product, and we have certain suppliers that commit to supplying a portion of that,
yep,
boxing it up, and there's a vehicle, that a truck that comes around, picks it up and sends it
yeah,
to the buyer. That is the
right,
ultimate goal, I think,
yep,
for what we're
yeah,
trying to do here as well. So
right.
um I think it's going to happen. Hopefully it happens in my lifetime, and I want to see it, and I want to see our customers, because I see the stories all the time of guys who aren't happy in their normal career. They were a tree service guy that they realized that their body's going to get beat up climbing trees all day, and um, they want to be their own boss, and they're doing it. And anything we can do to make it easier for them to keep their business, and even grow it to a point where they could be a medium or a larger size business, is it's going to be impressive. So
Yeah.
yeah. Um, So wood flow. Anything else we want to cover here? I think I do want to, do you have a website for wood flow right now? And
I do. Yeah. It's woodflowtechnologies.com.
okay, cool. So yeah, I'm going to encourage everybody who is thinking about expanding their wood business into a flooring market. And do you have any suggestions on how these guys can get buyers for their flooring? Any suggestions in that area of what they can do to get into that market?
You just have to talk to your local build network with your local builders, your local architects,
Yep.
designers, things like that. So basically, you just have to build a network there.
Yeah. And so you subcontracted a lot of the work and were able to make it happen. You can start that way. What was the first big purchase you did when bringing it in-house? Was it the molder? Uh,
You know, I really only recently got a molder a couple of years ago.
yep.
The first big purchase was probably a straight line rip saw.
Yep.
And I got a Logasol molder planer back then, and that's what we used in the
Cool.
beginning. We've got like a full size molder now and all of that, but yeah, the Logasol, which would plane, and it would do a tongue and groove and a straight line ripsaw. So I was able to start doing the reman in house, and then I was able to do the tongue and groove in house for a while. And you know, we've grown a lot since then.
Well,
So
it's crazy. I love hearing this story from part-time job as a tree service guy who sees, hey, I'm sick of throwing all this wood away, to getting a sawmill, to doing furniture, to now realizing that manufacturing is going to be an issue for these smaller businesses, and really appreciate everything you're doing here, and encourage everybody,
absolutely.
check out the Urban Network. So is there a membership? Can they become a member of the Urban? How
Yeah, they
does?
can become a member.
Yep.
That's right. I'm not sure what the fees are, or the dues are, but I don't think it's that much. So I would get a membership and get involved and
Yeah.
join the conversation.
Yeah. The more people that can get involved, the more people that can help push this forward, the more we're going to realize the potential of this market. So, uh, Sim, super glad we were able to connect and chat. Love the work you're doing. We'll
Thank
be
you.
sure to follow along. Wood flow. We're gonna keep our eyes on that, and yeah, love it. A pleasure. Really, thank you for taking
Likewise.
the
Thank you.
time, and we'll be sure to follow what you're doing. It's exciting.
Sounds great.
Okay, thank you, Sims. Take care.
All right. You too.
Yep. Bye.